Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel, and if you are new, then welcome to my channel. My name is Stephanie and I paint miniatures during my kids' nap time. Today, I am painting my third miniature from Curse City, which is the Vargskyr. And out of the three I painted, this one is by far my favorite, so I hope you enjoy seeing the process of me getting it to look like this or like this. I'm not sure which side I'm gonna end up putting myself on. No more chit chat, let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so before doing anything, I did use some milliput to shape some cobblestones on him, so that's what you see at the bottom. I'm going in with 3 parts Vargskyr flesh and 1 part dark stone, and I am base coating the whole mini. So some of the areas that he has fur are kind of patchy, and so I wanted to get the base coat color deep in there so that when I pick out those hairs later, he won't look weird. He is nice and base coated, and I am taking whole red and I am going to be painting his hands and his feet. At this stage, I'm not worried about blending this color or anything like that. All I'm doing is getting an even coat over the areas of his feet that I want to be that dark red color. As you can see here, it's a very stark line, which is why I'm taking a makeup sponge and I'm bringing that color higher up. And as the makeup sponge naturally runs out of paint on it, it gives way to a very, very easy blend. I do this a lot when trying to blend 2 colors that are different from each other, like not close to each other on the spectrum, because it just makes that blend a lot easier to achieve. With that part done, I'm just going to go ahead and take a second to clean up any areas on him where I may have gotten that red color that I didn't want it. With that blended, we are going to do some wet blending now. So I'm going into the deepest areas with Galvorbeck red, working my way up to whole red, and then finally using this salmon-y color to do the highlight on the edges. So the deepest color is a type of maroon, I would say. It has a little bit of purple in it, and I'm just putting that into his deepest areas on these skin flaps that he has all over. And then I'm adding a little bit more whole red to that and slowly working my way through the gradient. Adding a little bit of water helps, and going kind of quickly and working when the paint is still wet helps as well. When doing the final layers, it helps as well to kind of do like a crisscrossy motion. It's kind of like a back and forth type motion with my paintbrush. This is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm failing to describe. So I'm just kind of muddling it back and forth, if that makes any sense at all. With all of his skin flaps done, I am taking Vargskyr flesh on a dry brush, and I am very carefully picking out some of the texture that he has on these skin areas. I don't want to load my brush up too much because I don't want to lose all of the blending underneath, but I definitely want to unify the color a little bit by adding that same base coat color that we used earlier. So if you've seen any of my other videos, you're going to be able to quickly identify a trend, and that is that I do a lot of brush work and then I drown everything in Skeleton Horde contrast paint. And this was no exception. So I'm taking 2 parts contrast medium, 1 part Skeleton Horde contrast paint, and I am placing it all over every single thing I have painted. So all of the dark areas, all of the light areas, all of the skin flaps, everything is going to get drowned in Skeleton Horde. When I say drowned, I'm actually placing it pretty carefully, trying to avoid any streaking action going on because I don't want a streaky looking mini. But yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and do that. At this point, I felt like going in on his face, so I'm taking 2 of the same colors from earlier, that salmon-y color and whole red, and I am placing the whole red into the deep areas of his face, and then gently blending into the salmon color on the outer regions of his face. So this is like around his nose, his gums, around his teeth, all of those fleshy bits. Next, I'm taking Uniform Gray and I am applying this under his eyes just to bring a little bit more shadow to them. This took like 3 coats because Army painter. Alright, after this step, I do eventually move on to his eyes, and I'm using a brand new eyeball brush that I just bought. This is my first time using it, and putting some flat yellow on it and just going in. This brush is like 5 little hairs. It made this so easy. And after I put the yellow color in there, I'm just gonna go in with black. I successfully filmed one of these eyeballs getting painted in frame, and then the other one was just way out of frame, so I'm not even gonna put it in here. Okay, I'm going in with dark stone and I am picking out his teeth. This is the same color I'm gonna use later for all of his claws and things like that as well. Alright, so next I'm going in with just Vargskyr flesh by itself, and I am dry brushing this all over him. And the reason for that is just because I'm about to do some layering on his skin, and it helps me to identify the high points and where I should be placing more color if I've already gone through and dry brushed. It just makes that step a lot easier, and it's less of a reach to the highlight color, which is actually going to be Vargskyr flesh mixed with a little bit of white. So by putting this in between dry brush of just Vargskyr flesh over everything, I'm bringing it up a little bit, identifying the high parts, getting more familiar with all the curves of him, and preparing for the next step. Alright, this is where I mix Vargskyr flesh and white, and you can do this just to whatever level of highlight you want. I did it as gradually as I could, so it was 3 parts Vargskyr flesh with 1 part white, and then just slowly work my way up from there until I was happy. I'm going over all of the high parts, and I'm being extra careful on his face. And yeah, this is actually one of my favorite steps. This used to challenge me more than anything, was doing these high parts, but it's really satisfying for some reason. Another thing I'm doing is taking my brush and carefully going over the red parts where I dry brush, because I don't want it to look as dry brushed as it currently does. So by just placing some more color over those parts gently, it kind of makes it look better rather than just like, oh, I dry brushed it really quickly. Using the contrast paint Achillean Green mixed with contrast medium in about half mix, and I am placing this into the deepest parts because I didn't feel like the maroon color I originally used was quite dark enough and was exactly what I was going for. So just by putting this contrast paint right over it into those deep areas, it kind of gives me that deeper purple look that I was originally going for. So this is what the dried effect of that contrast paint looks like. It's subtle, but I was happy with the result. Next, I'm going in with flat yellow, and I am going to be dry brushing this all over the center of his hairs, just on his back. I'm not trying to worry about like all the little hairs all over the rest of his body, just the main big section of hair. Taking the contrast paint Wildwood, which is a really deep saturated brown, and I combined it with 1 part contrast medium, so it's a 50-50 mix, and I am placing this all over. I love contrast paints for things like this that are highly textured, such as hair, and uneven surfaces like skin and things like that, because they just sink in perfectly. And I didn't even bother highlighting this after. I just went ahead and put it on there, and I was done with all the hair on his back. With the hair on his body, I wanted to be a little bit more careful because it's patchy, like I said before. So that took me a lot longer than I thought it would. But next, I am taking red and I am picking out these scratches that he has on his neck area. I thought that it would look cool if they looked fresh, like he had just gotten into a duel or something. Like this is Yu-Gi-Oh! So yeah, I went ahead and put that red color in there, went in with Wildwood, picked out the fur, and then I went over the whole area with Skeleton Horde contrast paint straight from the bottle just to make it look a little bit more guzzied up. And then I'm taking Glistening Blood, which is just a blood effect. It has a little bit of shine in it, and I am placing that on top of each little cut. Next, I am taking Darkstone and I am base coating all of his claws. Finally, I'm taking the same blue contrast paint from earlier and I am putting that on the top highest parts of each claw. Moving on to the base, like I said, I did put some cobblestones on there earlier, and I am taking Black Templar contrast paint and I am just base coating all of the stones. So that includes the cobblestones as well as the little stone detailing on the base and on the actual Vargskyr. I am taking Storm Vermin fur and I am putting this on all of the areas apart from the deepest recesses that I just painted. Next, I take Astrogranite Debris and I just slap this around all over the rest of the base that doesn't have cobblestones on it. I'm clipping the little peg off of the bottom of his foot, and then I am going to be placing him into the wet Astrogranite Debris to kind of make a little mold of his shape so that when it dries, he has a flat surface where his foot was, so he's not awkwardly just standing on top of it. It's like around him, if that makes sense. I'm taking a very, very, very light gray, pretty much white color, painting our little rat friend, taking this light salmon color for the tail, and then I end up going over the whole thing with soft tone just to make it look a little bit more dirty and bring some shadow to it. Then I am taking red and I'm using my brand new eyeball brush once again, and I am just putting a little eyeball on him. Alright, with that nice and dry, I am taking the contrast paint Wildwood and I am putting this all over the Astrogranite Debris. Then mixing Celestial Gray and Screaming Skull in a half-half mix, I am dry brushing everything except for our little rat friend. This is where I thought I was done, and so I started to put the black rim on and I was all excited, and then I remembered that I forgot a critical step, which was putting the Athonian camo shade into the cobblestones, into those areas in between them to make them look just a little bit more realistic. So I went ahead and did that, and then I was done. Alright, here is the final look. As usual, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.